I did ask for a bit of music at the beginning of this, but didn't get it. Okay, so what we've got here is we've got a flying saucer, but this flying saucer is actually made from just one shape, as you can see here. I'm going to use the outline mode, Command Y or Control Y, to go into outline mode, like so. Okay, and I'll just move that over here just a minute because this is a blend in the background there. But you can see that it is indeed one shape. Let's go back to preview, the 3D revolve that is mapped. Okay, let's click on that so we can see it. Now this is one of those dialogues that does take a little bit of rendering power, and also, if I'm honest, is direly in need of some loving care. But anyway, so what we've got here is we've got this path being rotated around, so it gives the illusion that I have a 3D shape there, and it's tilted like so. So if I wanted to edit the tilt, I can go ahead and do that. Okay, and you can see that change like so. Maybe I want to make it so it's just coming into land. There we go, like that. So you can see I can move all of these things around to edit this particular, a bunch of different symbols here. Some of these are the default ones from this document, but I've got these three symbols here. Okay, and if I go through the different surfaces, which are now highlighting, you can see how the symbols have been mapped. Got these three symbols here. You to edit, see that change like so. Different symbols. If you're wondering where the graphics on top come from, if I go to map art here, you can see that I've created a bunch of different symbols here. Some of these are the default ones from this document, but I've got these three symbols here. Okay, and if I go through the different surfaces, which are now highlighting, you can see how the symbols have been mapped to this artwork. But anyway, that's slightly outside of where we are on this particular course, but do investigate that later. So if I wanted to edit an effect, then all I need to do is to go ahead and click on the effect, and it takes me in the group, which is why it's been grouped, so I can go ahead and edit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add another effect, but back up at the group, which is why it's been grouped, so I can go ahead and edit the effect. And just so you can see that, if I double click again to go into the group, okay, I can go back out. Let's just go right this way in. So there we go. Now I'm in the group, and here at the top where it says group no appearance, if I click on that, it takes me back out to the group level. Now, if you don't know what I mean by that, then maybe you'd want to come down to the bottom here and click on this button. You can see I've got a new fill there. And what I'm going to do is convert this to an ellipse. So I'm going to go ahead and choose convert to shape ellipse. Okay, that converts like so. I'm not too worried about the size there. And 3D if I want to. There we go. Okay, to the edges, just to move it, so you can see it. I'm going to hit OK. And I'm also going to add just a little bit of a feather and transform, just to move it. Clicked inside the field. I'm going to change the opacity of it. However, I'm not sure about edit and also how you remove it and on effects, which can, or drag it down. down onto the trash can, like. Graphic styles are to Illustrator objects what paragraph and character styles are to text, in that they are a definition. So whenever you create something in a brand new stroke, let me just swap this over for a second. So this object has a black fill and a white stroke. I did that by holding down Shift and tapping X to transpose those values. If I tap D, you can see it goes back to the default. Well, where does that come from? It's actually a document level thing. So unless you change one of the documents that Illustrator uses as a default template, then what you have is here in graphic styles, you have this one immovable graphic style that has to stay in the panel. You can select it and try and delete it, but there's no trash can. To do it, that one has to remain. I can override it, and in fact in some of the files that I've used throughout this course I have my own template that sets things up with just a black stroke, and that's achieved by doing this. If I go ahead and select this object, now the fill is in front, so I can hit the slash key to get rid of the fill. If I drag that into the graphic styles panel, you can see that it wants to add a new style with this blue line here, but if I hold down the Alt or Option key and drag it over the top of any existing style, it redefines that style. Now I'm going to zoom out just for a moment and move these elements up onto the pasteboard here, and then tap D. And you can see now they take on that new default style. I'm just going to do a few undos here to go back to where we were in the first place. So let's build something that's slightly more interesting. So I'll select this rectangle, and making sure that fill is in front here, I'm going to hit the period or full stop key, gradient fill, and slash gives it a fill of none. Or if the stroke was in front, then those values would apply to that. So let's mix up this gradient a bit. Let's add a couple of colors here. They're not of any particular consequence. I've just chosen red at one end and yellow at the other. To go ahead and open my appearance panel here, let's make some quick changes. From profile here, let's go with menu, choose distort and transform. And what I'm going to target the fill here is just rotate that. Okay, don't forget you need to keep the actual object selected at the same time. Target that. Let's go to the Photoshop effects. Let's go pixelate, color halftone. Just accept whatever is in there. That's just groovy like that. There we are. We'll target that. Let's go to the Photoshop effects. Let's go pixelate. To edit that and maybe change. Nice for the purposes of this thing. Then with my selection tool active, going to drag, name it, but I can always do that by targeting it. Okay, and then going to the graphic style options and giving it a name. Now there's a pop here and click on them. These, it doesn't have to be the one that created the style. Okay, go to the appearance panel here. Let's get rid of that transform effect there of the other one, and you can see on that particular object. Then back into graphic styles, drag that in, hold down the option key and drag it on top. Can also generate styles that add. Whenever you hover over any style, it normally gives you this long tooltip here. So option click to add to existing style. We're going to do that in a second. And control click, that would be, I guess, a right click on Windows. I can't remember just off the top of my head for a larger preview. So if I just do control click here, then I get a better look at how that is. So I'll select this shape and tap D here. Whoops, that was the one I had at the top. So let's undo that. We'll make the one that's easier for you to see. D, just here. So that has a white fill, okay, and a black stroke. I'm going to hit slash to remove the fill. I'm going to keep the stroke on there, I think, just for the minute. Actually, no, I'm going to try and get an effect to it. Let's go stylize, and the effect is there to the panel. Okay, like so. Oops, a daisy. Let's try that again. There we are. This time with field. Click on Windows to add to existing style. And there you go. Object. Okay. Go back to here. Okay. Option click or alt click on Windows to add to existing style. And there you go. So do use them. You may be wondering. wondering why I've included graphics the front, or if they're this sort of wobbly yellow at the other, might just tone down that red a bit. It's a bit panel here, and we'll choose some quick changes. So let's take the stroke here and make that a bit chunkier. Let's go ahead and click for the stroke panel, and we'll choose a different profile here. Let's go with, you may be wondering why I've included the brush tool in course. Well, it was a bit of a toss-up for me, but I think it's actually better here because you don't need to draw with it to actually use it. Now, you can, of course, inside this chapter on appearances rather than putting it in with the drawing tools earlier in the course. Well, it was a bit of a toss-up for me, but I think it's actually better here because you don't need to draw with it to actually use it. Now, you can draw. In fact, if I go ahead and select it, and then I'll double click on it in the toolbox, you can see it's got very similar controls to the pencil tool. And if I go ahead and draw, now I've got a load of different brush strokes here that I can use, but I'll just draw one with this, like so. Okay, and if I wanted to edit some of that, then I could do that as well if it was selected. Okay, so very, very similar in a lot of ways to the pencil tool. However, the reason I've dropped it in here is because brush strokes can be applied to anything, and that will change their appearance in here. Now, we could choose one of these that is designed for strokes. Okay, so they're past their sell-by date is another way you might express it. And a few of these are like that. They're designed to add a more natural feel to drawn objects. Whereas some of the others, such as these borders here, they're designed to do a whole different purpose. And you can see that as I move through them, okay, they are a completely different animal to the ones at the top just here. Let's go ahead and select the ellipse and apply the same brush that I've got here, this stained glass brush. Okay, and you can see how it's bent around to the path shape. And that's one of the advantages that brushes have when you're using a pattern like so. Now, you will actually see that at an earlier point in the course if you're just dipping into different parts. In fact, it's in the chapter on patterns, on how to make one. But they are also width dependent. So at the moment, both stroke, then the pattern goes along with it. And that's the point. Really powerful brushes which add crazy, crazy effects to strokes. In fact, if I choose this one just here, you might be slightly underwhelmed by its initial appearance. But when you're drawing with it, it is quite something. Although Illustrator will warn you when you've gone too far and just say, whoa, it's going to take a lot of time to process this stuff. It would be great if it actually said that in the dialogue mode. I'm just going to undo that back to there. Hey, you've also got scatter brushes that will scatter various different things around. You can add more from the loader down at the bottom, so you can see there's plenty of different things for you to play with here by default. And also, just to give you an idea of how to use some brushes and how direction can be important, here are two that I made a little while ago. So what we're going to do here is get the line tool, so hit backslash on your keyboard, okay, come over on the other side, doesn't have to be the same height, and then apply to make skyscrapers. Right, so if I get my direct selection tool and click on the anchor point at the top and drag that upwards, or stories, flexibility. The eyedropper tool can help you quickly apply appearances from inside your document. They don't have to be complex. They can be relatively straightforward if you want. In fact, if I just create a new rectangle just here, like so, and fill that with orange, okay, or any other color, because there are others available, Okay, and then I'll select this rectangle just here and tap I to get my eyes. You'll see that all it's doing at the moment is taking the color across from the back of this particular appearance. Well, that's because I haven't enabled it to select appearances. If you go and double click on the eyedropper tool in the toolbox, you can see all of the various different things it can pick up. And it's worth noting that includes text styles down at the bottom there. It's a difficult couple of words to spit out, that, isn't it? Text styles, because otherwise it sounds like textiles. Styles apply to text. There we go. That's the best way to do it. But if I enable appearance at the top here, okay, then what I can do is, with this selected, now when I click, okay, it has applied that appearance. It will do the same thing with strokes. So if I go and get this stroke here, which by the way I purposely drew upside down as far by clicking on the flip along vertical. Illustrator Has two different kinds of basic text. And by that I mean there are other options such as text on a path and vertical text variations, but the two base variations are point and area text. Some text from a text file that I've got here. I'll just grab this text from the top and copy that, come back into it. The way you can tell is by looking for two particular things. First, if it has a boundary around it like this, but no small white box down in the bottom right-hand corner or the top left, then it's definitely point. Copy that. Start with red, we'll find point. What I'm going to do is just zoom out a little bit and pan across. That's because the point here is the origin of the text, and we've just said, right, you need to start here, so it's spread out either side of that. If I choose right align, don't worry too much about that, but where you do have to be careful is when you're into. Point text is slightly because with an area text, it is just like InDesign. You're creating an area for the text to flow into. Point text is slightly different. If you drag one of the corners here and you don't hold down Shift, you will distort your text. Okay, what you're actually doing there is one of the character options we'll see in the next movie. So I'm just going to undo that just for now. Bring my text frame or my area text down into this region here. Okay, let's zoom back in on that. I'm just going to park it. Right advantage with area text is you can thread so, and I can repeat that just here. And now I've got 3 threaded frames for my text to flow in and blend through. Most of the time, in all likelihood, if you're creating illustrations in here, you will use point. When you select
certain kind of a thing to try to maybe show somebody something through music, even show myself something, because as I've discovered in myself, it's been a revelation.
or have active any text in Illustrator, you will get options here in the Properties panel, and of course, if you're using it, in the control strip at the top. But for the purpose of this movie and the movie afterwards, what I'm going to do is I'm going to call for the whole panel. Now, Command T will get you through to the character and paragraph panels there that we'll be using, but otherwise you can go to the window menu, come down to type and choose character from there. So there are a number of options here, as you'd expect. The first of which is the font family you're planning on using. So you can click there, of course, and scroll through and find your font, but I'm actually going to use Impact here. And some of my friends will have a good chuckle about this because it's not underneath. I'm going to go ahead and select the size of the text. Now I'm going to zoom in on the text here just to help you, especially if you're watching on a mobile device. I'm going to go ahead and select this line just here. Okay, whoops-a-daisy, accidentally created another text box. Let's just double click on the text to select it. Okay, and then just go for that line. And then I can increase the size here like so. So I'll bring that right up so it's nice and big just there. And then I'll triple click on the line beneath and maybe make that slightly smaller to fit, like so. And then you've got the interlinear space or leading just to the side of that. And I'm scrolling over these fields, by the way, with my trackpad. You could do that with a mouse wheel as well, or use any of the other controls. And then there are controls for kerning and bit off. So kerning, just in case you're not aware of it, is the relationship between two can actually increase that just a bit. Okay, like big numbers, but it's easier to type 5. Okay, so you could as well select a line and have Adobe work it out for you. They've got this fabulous optical metrics range of characters. So while I've got these selected, what I'll do here is choose 25 and now 100, and you can see that the spacing has changed for all of those, but I don't need to use that right now. Then we've got vertical scaling and horizontal scaling, neither of which I think I've ever used on purpose, but there you are.